One of the most overutilized diagnoses today. To me, it's piriformis syndrome, that deep pain in your butt that runs down your leg if it actually starts from your piriformis muscle. So, piriformis syndrome can be a diagnosis that causes and has a symptom of sciatica. But guess what? You can't see it on an MRI, can't see it on an X-ray, and those people who have a clear X-ray, clear MRIs of their spine, sometimes the piriformis muscle can be the problem, and piriformis syndrome can be the hidden cause of what's causing your sciatica. So today I'm going to explain what the piriformis muscle is, how common it is, what happens when it gets tight and irritated, and why it can cause sciatica symptoms. So let's break it down into simple terms. The piriformis muscle is a small muscle, but it's actually pretty powerful, located deep underneath the big glute muscles, the glute medius maximus, and it runs between the base of your spine, your sacrum here, and your femur, which is the hip bone that would be attaching right here. So you would have your piriformis muscle running from the top of this bone around into your sacrum. And I always tell people the telltale sign of somebody who has piriformis syndrome is when they sit down, it feels like there's a golf ball or a softball sitting right in the middle of their butt, or it's like a shard of glass, really sharp, simply because that muscle, when you saw it run from the hip around to the sacrum, when you sit down on it, I like to tell people it's sort of like a hammock. You're sitting right down into it. So if it was irritated, it's obviously going to be irritated when you put the weight of your body through it. Job of the piriformis muscle is to rotate your hip outward and to stabilize your pelvis while you're walking and even standing on one leg. So if you do have piriformis syndrome, when you're laying down at night, you'll notice that the side that's painful might be rotated outward, because when you have piriformis syndrome, that muscle is tightened and contracted. So your hip is actually rotated outward a little bit, which would mean your toes are rotated outward. But here's where it gets interesting. Your sciatic nerve runs under, over, or sometimes right even through that piriformis muscle. And to me, the only people who can actually get the true piriformis syndrome is that 15 to 20% of people who have the sciatic nerve that pierces right through that muscle. Because what happens is when that muscle gets tight and irritated, it clamps down on that sciatic nerve. If the sciatic nerve is running over or under, it won't nearly be as compressed as when the nerve runs right through that muscle and it squeezes it, causing that inflammation and the pain that feels like true sciatica. You might be surprised to learn that mild piriformis tightness is very common, especially in people who sit or who have some weak hips, because that muscle wants to help stabilize and it might be irritated when you're sitting for prolonged periods of time. So it's not uncommon for people to have butt pain and no sciatica, especially if the sciatic nerve does not pierce the piriformis muscle. And I say that it's one of the most overutilized diagnoses today because oftentimes when you have a bulging or a herniated disc in the low back and you sit down, you compress that disc, and those nerve roots are responsible for the pain in the middle of that butt. So it can sort of mimic piriformis syndrome, but it's definitely not when it's coming from a herniated or a bulging disc. So how can that tiny muscle cause so much pain? Well, when it gets spasms, it can get really, really tight. Have you ever had a calf spasm or a calf cramp? You feel it right in the calf. Well, when that piriformis gets irritated and it tightens up, and if that sciatic nerve runs right through it, you can understand why gripping that sciatic nerve will cause that pain to run down the leg. Most of the time, when you have piriformis syndrome, the pain that's running down the back of the leg, the sciatica pain from the piriformis syndrome, is not going to go past the knee. Occasionally it does, but that's on a rare occasion. And most of the time, I would say 98 to 100% of the time, if you have true piriformis syndrome, it's only going to be on one side or the other. 95% of the time, people who get piriformis syndrome are either cyclists or bikers. And the other 5% are usually those who have had a pretty significant fall on one cheek or the other. And it can take I've seen 5 to 8 years after that significant fall because it takes time for scar tissue and irritation to build up between the piriformis muscle and the sciatic nerve. And that's why the pain is there. The pain typically gets worse, as I mentioned before, while sitting with piriformis syndrome. But unlike true sciatica from a herniated disc, piriformis syndrome does not cause any pain to radiate up. So if you have pain above the middle of the butt, it's most likely not piriformis syndrome because piriformis syndrome will cause pain in the center of the butt down. But the good news is, once you treat piriformis syndrome the correct way, the nerve calms down, the shooting pain calms down, and that muscle can actually heal. So here's what I love to tell people who have piriformis syndrome. You know what? Just like most things, it's very treatable, very beatable. Most of the time, I would say 98+% of the time, fix it without any type of medication, injections, and definitely not surgery. When I work with clients with piriformis related symptoms and piriformis related sciatica, I want to focus on the three main things that I typically focus on with all my clients. Number one, we want to release that muscle, but we do that through balancing out the imbalances in your body. Because when you have piriformis pain or sciatica pain from piriformis syndrome, your body's going to compensate. It's going to shift away from the pain. It's going to cause imbalances in your body. And those compensations that you're doing are going to cause those imbalances in your body. So number one, we want to calm down the imbalances in your body by balancing out the imbalances so that that will take pressure and tension out of the body so that piriformis muscle and the muscles around it that are contracting to protect it can relax and ease because it's not fighting against all the imbalances that are going on in your body. One thing too that's key when you're dealing with piriformis syndrome, you want to make sure the hip motion and the hip strength is balanced out, but you don't want to work the strength until your body's balanced out because you don't want to hold it in the imbalanced position. All right, then once we balance out the body, then stabilize the hips, then we get you back to doing the normal activities that you love doing slowly and wisely. We want to fix your daily habits. Maybe initially we don't want to sit for prolonged periods of time. You want to watch what you sit on. You want to monitor and try to figure out what are those triggering things that aggravate your piriformis, whether it be an activity, a movement, or position. Try to minimize those and change up those things throughout the day so you're not constantly aggravating it as it heals. One big mistake that most people make and most medical professionals tell you to make is you want to stretch out that muscle. You want to take that muscle that's tight, stretch it. Now, here's a good demonstration for you. If you've got a muscle that's tight and irritated, what do you think is going to happen if you take it and tighten it even more to the irritation? Do you think that that's going to calm it down and relax it, or is it going to irritate it even further? It's probably going to irritate it even further because typically when you take something that's tight and make it tighter, it usually doesn't like it and it's not going to loosen up and relax and say thank you. So you've got to make sure when you're doing stretches, you're doing them to the proper side. You're not irritating the problematic side even further. And most of the time, when you get sent to physical therapy, you're getting targeted stretches for that piriformis muscle, targeting strengthening with bands and clamshell exercises and tennis ball or foam rolling on that pain. Now, I tell my clients the three things you need to stop if you have piriformis syndrome. Three things right away. Stop stretching it, stop digging on it, and stop trying to strengthen it because it's a muscle that's irritated and aggravated. And strengthening it, trying to strengthen it and cause it to contract is not going to help relax it. Stretching it, as I showed you, is not going to cause it to relax it. And digging on it doesn't make sense because it's already painful, so why cause more pain? So the proper treatment approach is key to healing piriformis syndrome. So if you think your sciatica is a result of piriformis syndrome, please take a deep breath, relax, realize you are not stuck. You are not broken beyond repair. With the right treatment approach, balancing out your body and then stabilizing your body in that balanced position, you can easily overcome piriformis syndrome, get back to running, get back to biking, get that nerve free and unlock that pain by doing the right things. If you'd like our help, please comment PS for piriformis syndrome below. and myself or an advisor will get in touch with you as soon as we can and let you know the next steps that we need to take to get you the relief that you deserve and get you back to cycling, running, and doing your normal activities and sitting without pain. Once again, my name is Dean Volk with Sciatica Relief Now. Take care and have a phenomenal day.